there. Ever wondered what a loan officer really does all day? Like beyond just saying yes or no to a loan.
It's definitely more than that.
Yeah, like it's a career that's super important to how the whole financial system works, but I feel like no one really talks about it.
Right, and it's often misunderstood.
Totally. Well, we're going to change that today. We're diving deep into the world of loan officers thanks to some seriously helpful resources from RoleCatcher.
They're all about helping people figure out their careers.
Exactly. So if you're feeling clueless about this career path, get ready to feel totally confident by the end of this deep dive.
Yeah, what I find really interesting about this role is that you need this kind of unique balance of financial smarts and like really strong people skills.
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. What does a loan officer actually do on a day-to-day basis, and where do they usually work?
So imagine this. Someone wants to buy their dream home or start a business or even consolidate some debt.
Mm-hmm.
The loan officer is the person who helps them secure the financing to make that happen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they work in banks, credit unions, mortgage companies, really any kind of financial institution.
So is it a lot of like sitting at a desk, pushing papers around?
There's definitely some of that,
Oh.
analyzing financial documents, using specialized software, making sure everything's compliant with all the regulations. But it's not just that.
Oh, okay.
They're also spending time talking with clients, lenders, real estate agents. It's a very dynamic role, requiring strong communication and relationship building skills.
Yeah, that makes sense. You'd need serious attention to detail for all those documents, but then also be able to connect with people on a personal level.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher really emphasizes how important that is, building trust with clients, especially when you're dealing with something as important as a loan.
Okay, so what specific skills are employers looking for in a loan officer? Like what makes a candidate stand out from the crowd?
Well, analytical skills are super important. It's not just about being good at math. It's about really understanding financial statements, assessing risk, and being able to take in complex financial data and use it to make smart lending decisions.
Wow, that sounds pretty intense. So is it like you need a deep understanding of financial modeling or certain software programs?
It definitely gives you an edge. A lot of loan officers use specific software programs these days to analyze creditworthiness, calculate debt-to-income ratios, and generate amortization schedules. Being tech-savvy is more and more important in this field.
So it's like a mix of financial knowledge and tech skills. Got it. We touched on the whole people skills thing earlier. Can you talk a bit more about how that plays out in the day-to-day?
Sure, think about it. You're guiding people through what can be a pretty stressful process, right? Buying a house, starting a business, it's a big deal. Loan officers need to be able to explain complex financial stuff in a way that anyone can understand, address concerns, and sometimes even have tough conversations when a loan isn't approved.
Right, so it's about being knowledgeable but also empathetic.
Exactly. Building rapport and trust is huge. Just like being able to break down those financial concepts into something anyone can understand.
It's interesting how important communication is for this role. What about staying up to date with everything that's always changing in the finance world?
That's where continuous learning comes in. RoleCatcher really stresses how important it is to stay current on lending regulations, industry trends, and any new technologies that are popping up.
Why are those regulations so important in the lending world?
Basically, they're there to protect consumers and make sure the entire financial system stays stable. One recent example is how much stricter the underwriting guidelines are for mortgage loans now, which came about after the housing crisis.
Right. That's a really good point. It shows how crucial the role of a loan officer is in navigating all of that and making sure both the lender and the borrower are protected.
Exactly. So you land that loan officer job. What happens next? What does your career path look like?
I'm really curious to hear about the different stages of a loan officer career and the skills you need to climb that ladder. Let's dig into that right after this.
Okay, so we're back and ready to unpack what a career path as a loan officer actually looks like.
Yeah.
So let's start with someone who's just entering the field. What does that entry-level role usually involve?
So you're fresh out of college, right? Maybe you had an internship or two.
Yeah.
You land that entry-level loan officer position. At that stage, it's really about building a solid foundation.
So is it a lot of like grunt work, learning the ropes even if it's not the most exciting stuff? Yeah, you could say that. It might involve assisting more senior loan officers with tasks like gathering and verifying all the financial documents, running credit checks, making sure every single thing is in order before a loan application even gets to a senior loan officer's desk.
Wow. So it's like a crash course in attention to detail, but also a really good opportunity to learn from people who've been there and done that.
Absolutely. And don't forget about building those relationships with clients, even at that early stage. You're often the first point of contact. So those communication skills and that customer service mindset are super important.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're kind of like the friendly face of the whole loan process. So once you've got some experience under your belt, what's the next step up?
Usually it's a junior loan officer role. That's where you start to really use those analytical skills.
Yeah.
You'll be digging deeper into loan applications, scrutinizing financial statements, maybe even preparing loan proposals to present to the higher-ups.
Oh, wow. So more responsibility, more decision making. Sounds like this is where you really start to hone your craft.
Exactly. And this is also where those industry certifications that RoleCatcher talks about can really make a difference. Having certifications in things like credit analysis or specialized loan underwriting can really boost your resume.
It shows you're serious about this career path,
Right.
that you're committed to professional development and all that.
For sure. Okay, so let's say you keep climbing that ladder. You might find yourself in a senior loan officer position before you know it.
Okay, so what's the difference between a senior loan officer and those earlier roles? Like, what sets them apart?
At that level, you're the one who has the authority to actually approve loans. You're using all your knowledge and experience to make those big lending decisions.
Wow.
You're also mentoring junior staff, building relationships with important clients and stakeholders. You're basically stepping into a leadership role within the organization,
So it becomes about more than just the numbers at that point.
right?
It's about strategy leadership, seeing the big picture.
You got it. And according to RoleCatcher, this is often when loan officers start to specialize. They might focus on a specific area like mortgage lending, commercial lending, or even find a niche within those broader areas.
That makes sense. You've built the strong foundation, you've honed your skills, and now it's time to zero in on what you're really passionate about.
Exactly. Now, if you're someone who really loves leadership, there's always the loan officer manager role.
So that's when you're basically running the show.
Pretty much. You're overseeing a whole team of loan officers, setting goals, managing budgets, and of course making sure everyone's on top of those ever-changing regulations.
I bet a love of spreadsheets and a knack for managing people are pretty important for that role.
Oh, absolutely. But it's not just about numbers and delegating tasks. It's about being a leader with vision, a strategic thinker, and someone who's passionate about their team and the organization as a whole.
That sounds like a really demanding role, but also incredibly rewarding. So let's shift gears for a minute and dive into the interview process. What are some of those make or break questions that someone interviewing for a loan officer role should be ready for? Let's get into those right after this. All right, we are back and ready to tackle some of those tough interview questions that anyone interviewing for a loan officer position should be ready to knock out of the park. So what are some of the big ones that RoleCatcher mentioned?
Well, they really emphasized how important it is to have a solid understanding of the entire loan process, like from start to finish.
Okay,
So a really common question is, can you walk me through the loan origination process?
makes sense.
And that's your chance to really show off what you know from the initial application all the way to the closing table.
So even if you don't have tons of experience, it's about showing them that you understand how it all works.
Exactly. Highlight any experience you do have, even if it's not directly as a loan officer.
Yeah.
So maybe you've done some financial analysis, or you're great with customer service, or maybe you're just crazy organized and detail-oriented.
Right.
It all ties back to those core skills that a loan officer needs, right?
Totally. Okay, so you've nailed the basics, and then they hit you with something like, how do you evaluate a potential borrower's creditworthiness? That feels like when things get real, right?
Yeah, definitely. This is where you really get to show off those analytical skills.
Yeah.
Be prepared to talk about credit reports, debt-to-income ratios, all those financial indicators.
So it's about being able to look at the big picture of someone's financial situation, right?
Yeah.
Not just one piece of it.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be afraid to mention any specific software or tools that you're comfortable using, like financial modeling software, credit analysis tools. Stuff like that shows them that you're up to date and tech savvy.
That's a good point. Okay, so RoleCatcher also mentioned some of those curveball questions that might come up, like, how would you handle a difficult or non-compliant borrower? Ooh, that one sounds tricky.
It is, but it's also a great opportunity to really stand out. Have a good story ready to go about a time when you had to deal with a challenging client situation. Maybe someone was upset about the loan terms, or they were having a hard time understanding the process. Something like that.
So it's about showing that you can stay calm under pressure, that you're a problem solver,
Yeah.
and that you're not going to just throw away a client relationship because things get a little tough.
Exactly. Emphasize that you're empathetic, that you can explain complex topics in a way that makes sense, and that you're always looking for the best possible outcome for everyone involved.
Love it. Any last words of wisdom for those getting ready for those loan officer interviews?
Just remember that preparation is key. Review those common interview questions, practice your answers, and most importantly, project confidence and show your enthusiasm. This is a really interesting field with tons of opportunity, and if you're passionate about it, they'll be able to tell.
Couldn't agree more. This deep dive has been so insightful, and a huge thank you to RoleCatcher for giving us such great information. If anyone out there is feeling inspired to check out the world of loan officers, I definitely recommend taking a look at what RoleCatcher has to offer. Their career guides, interview prep tools, and industry insights are seriously valuable resources. That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next one.